Hello, I am Alex Mathews, and I'm here with my colleagues John Arnold and Emma Carroll of Theogony. We have the opportunity to interview Chuck Todd, host of NBC's Meet the Press, the longest-running television show in history. Welcome to the show, Mr. Todd.
Happy to be here.
You've been hosting the show for over 3 years now. How do you think you've shaped the program since becoming host? And does your background as chief White House correspondent influence your new role?
I would say this. I had a potential opportunity to host this show before I was a White House correspondent. I was always thankful that I didn't get the job done. I think my understanding of American politics was I had plenty of understanding of American politics in 2009. But in 2009, I didn't have the depth when it comes to international politics and when it comes to the world. 6 years, front row seat, traveling the world, and having to, being a White House correspondent, I always say it's like every day sometimes you're taking a graduate course in some new issue, and it's a one-day course. Because the public expects you to be an expert on whatever you're covering in that moment. On air, you've got to be able to go at least an inch deep. But in order to credibly be an inch deep, you got to go 3 or 4 inches deep with your own knowledge. So learning about the intricacies of Syria, learning about the intricacies of the EU, of trade policy with different Asian countries as I traveled the world covering the Obama administration, better prepared me to do this job now. I don't think I would have been as prepared. So that's one. The second part of your question, I'm changing the show. I viewed the biggest changes I made was I worried that when I took the job, that Meet the Press was just thought of as a Sunday morning show. And frankly, in this new media landscape, relevance matters. And I want to Meet the Press to stay relevant. So my whole goal has been to take the idea of Meet the Press, and it's a 24/7 operation. So we now have a cable show, I have a podcast. We do, today we're starting our first Amazon Alexa audio daily briefing. Branded Meet the Press. The point is that that Meet the Press that it's a brand that tells you, okay, this is serious politics, it's in depth, that it says something, no matter whether it's on Sunday morning or every day on cable television.
Can you tell us more about your segment, Data Download, and how has that affected the way that you analyze and describe politics to viewers?
Well, look, my interest in politics probably started from a numbers perspective. I've always been sort of a numbers geek. My dad and I invented our own little fantasy baseball league in 1982 before that was a thing, where we were keeping track of statistics. And the thing about elections is it's very much statistically based. Understanding of the American political landscape is about demographics. Well, that's statistics. And so I've always been attracted to that. What's been interesting as sort of the digital revolution has brought together a data revolution. And the public is more interested in consuming data-driven journalism than ever before. So what I view Data Download is sort of our little way of telling a story via data journalism, in the same way you tell a story via photojournalism in this case. So this week, for instance, there was all this talk about, Roseanne's doing so well, this reboot of this program, and the coast, the liberal elites don't like it, but boy, middle America seems to be gravitating toward it. And we were like, well, there's plenty of research out there to find out what do Democrats watch and what do Republicans watch, and what are some shows that everybody watches. So that's data driven. You need data to tell that story. So, but I think plenty of people are interested. Oh, and so the conclusion we came to is actually, as much as while Roseanne is actually an outlier, meaning we actually do, as Democrats and Republicans, we watch more of the same programs than we want to admit. But what was the best news I got out of it, for me, that I thought was kind of humorous, was the most bipartisan network was HGTV. And I thought, well, the country could use some remodeling. So that's a good thing.
Okay, so recently there have been allegations of sexual assault and harassment in Hollywood and the media. Is there something wrong with the culture? And if so, how is it fixable?
Well, I think the culture was the celebrity protection culture. I guess is part of it. I mean, in each of the cases, it is sort of this. Their individuals were treated. You remember that phrase that became a thing during the Great Recession? Too big to fail. Individuals were treated as too big to fail, whether in the media, and so then that created this power dynamic, and there was a perception that, oh my God, a program can't survive without this host. So then what does that do? That sends the message to everybody that works on that program that no matter how bad of a person they are, they're too important to my paycheck. So I have to tolerate this kind of behavior. So I do think we had a values problem overall. And I say we, I'm not speaking for the network. I'm speaking overall for everybody. I don't want to talk about a single individual for what it's worth on this, but it has been it's been I have found it's been a tough moment for my company, but I think it's been a good moment. I think we are going to be better. I think we now realize that we shouldn't put too much power in one person's hands. It's not good in a you wouldn't want that in a country. Why would you want that in any other part of a company? So I think we'll be better out of it. What I'm most proud of is how organically, how much the younger staffers, I'm going to speak for this, and my organization have made sure the leaders have followed through on their promises. And they have. Look, we're not going to be, there's always going to be incidents because we're humans, and human beings are flawed. People are flawed, or innately flawed, I guess. But I think we'll be in a better place.
Yesterday, you characterized Peter Navarro's attack on the Washington Post as a cheap shot. What led you to say that? And in general, how do you respond to cheap shots and fake news accusations?
Sometimes I let those things go. Look, a partisan comes on an interview, and I always say, it's like, I know that they have a little bit of housekeeping to do. They have to throw some red meat at their supporters, left or right. So I'll admit sometimes I have a high tolerance for that stuff. I didn't have a high tolerance for it yesterday because literally 2 minutes before air, so the Russian government put out a statement on the chlorine attack in Syria, and called it fake news. They didn't imply it was fake news. Use the translated phrase fake news in their official release. So I had read that so it was front of mind, and you're like, this has been what we've all been warning for. Look, criticize the coverage all you want. They didn't talk to everybody. They should have talked to me, or they should have talked to this. I don't pretend that any story I go on the air in is perfect. What I can tell you is that it's the most accurate story in the moment that I'm telling it to you. And so our fear has always been by just throwing out fake news and treating, you are essentially, and by the way, the American presidency in the White House is the spokesperson for freedom and democracy for the world. It's a responsibility that you have as president of the United States, or working for the government of the United States. And when you lead by example. So he's doing fake news, so guess what? We now have dictators in the Philippines, Turkey, Russia, China, all in the last month have used the phrase fake news. That's not good. And so that's why I said something.
Earlier today, during the Q&A with other students, you touched on alternative facts. Mm-hmm. How has the rise of misinformation, fake news, alternative facts impacted you as a role as a journalist, and just journalism in general, on how you keep especially political figures in check, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to, I think we've had to be more methodical at showing our work, more methodical in trying to explain here, well, you're saying this, but the facts say this, this, and this. you know, how are you at all disputing this? It's so I'd say we've increased the amount of ways that we're showing you our reporting, but I don't know if we've got it right yet. I'll be honest, because I think that the power to circulate, you know, a lie always travels the world a lot faster than the truth. That's an expression. It's an old saying for a reason, because it's true. And I think this is a constant battle. I think one of the things we need is to, and I feel it's important to show that when our reporting is proven to be true down the road, if it was questioned in the moment, I think it's important for us to remind viewers that when we correctly reported about the story 3 or 4 weeks ago, they called it fake news, but it wasn't. And I know that's a little bit of, it would look like that. Some people could say that's chest thumping. On the other hand, I think it's part of the learning process for the news consumer.
And so how do you handle the time constraint of an interview? And when do you decide to push a question or change topics?
I don't handle the time constraints very well. If you ask my executive producer, who's in my ear telling me, rap, you're 1 minute over, you know. It's something. I've tried to do a couple things. I try to limit the number of topics I want to. I'd rather go deep on 2 topics in a 10-minute interview than do 7 topics in a 10-minute interview, because then you're not going to get depth on anything. So I have tried to. If you watch how I've interviewed senators, the first, say, 18 months that I was on Meet the Press, and if you look at how I've done it in the last year, it's different. You know, I worried about all different, like 17 different headlines before, and it was always about, wow, we need to hear from Senator so-and-so on this issue and on this issue. And then, you know, and it was like worrying about getting a statement. And it's like, well, what's one statement going to add to anything? And instead, you get a lot more out of going a little, you get a lot more, the viewer gets a lot more out of it. And that's sort of how I try to remind myself, so what does a viewer want from this person? I always say, you can ask my staff this, Saturday mornings are when we really have this discussion on stage. All right, we have the president's chief trade advisor out. What's the public want to hear from them? What do they want to understand? And so we decide these are the 3 main themes we want to get out of the interview, and then you go from there. As far as when do, you know, I don't push back on every falsehood. People point that out all the time. You pick and choose. You pick and choose the ones that you think are necessary versus ones that become a distraction. Sometimes somebody throws something out there almost hoping that I take the bait, and then all of a sudden I've gone down this road, I've run out of time, and I never got to that question. So there's not a pure, I don't have a, say, I always do it this way, I always do it that way, but you sort of feel it in the moment. Like the decision to push back on fake news when he said it. We ended up going 3 minutes over in that interview in the time constraints. My EP said nothing. He goes, no. It was you had to do it. It was the right moment. So it really is sort of in the moment decisions.
Again, thank you. I'm Alex Mathews with John Arnold and Emma Carroll of Theogony.